Part 4. The topic that I chose to speak on during this visit, it's not finished because there are several personalities we didn't touch on yet, but the topic was outstanding personalities that we find described in Canto 1 Srimad Bhagavatam. And so far we've discussed 3. Shukadev, Maharaj Parikshit, and Narada Muni. And if you missed it, you can catch it on some kind of storage system, probably, right? Probably. And now, I was going to do something else this evening, but it's Bhismadev. Chapter 9 is Bhismadev's story and his prayers to Krishna. And it's actually a discussion between Yudhisthira and Grandfather Bhishma in chapter 9. But it's a very nice section, and he's praying to Krishna like anything. So he's often referred to with an adjective, Grandfather Bhishma. And how did he get that name or that identity? Because the father of the Pandus died when the 5 brothers were very young. Go ahead, hurry. And when the 5 brothers were without a father, and Kunti was without a husband, the advice of Vyasadeva was that they should go back to the capital, Hastinapur. And when they went back, Grandfather Bhishma acted like the father of the 5 boys. Therefore, Grandfather Bhishma. So not found within Canto 1, Chapter 9, is found in Mahabharata. And there's a little bit we'll share from a much longer story from Mahabharata. There was the 8th son of Maharaj Santanu and Ganga Devi. In the painting that you see on the left, that's Santanu and Ganga Devi. Bhismadev was son number 8, and he wasn't called Bhismadev till much later. When he was young, he was called Deva Vrata. Deva Vrata. So we're going to hear a little bit about how all that happened. The 8th son, because the first 7 sons were tossed in the river. We'll find out about that one. So Deva Vrata became known as Bhishma because he took a great vow. Bhishma means great vow. His father, Santanu, wanted to marry a second wife. The second wife was Satyavati, and Satyavati father, when the emperor came to a fisherman's home, that's the fisherman you see in the painting, and the fisherman said, "No, Santanu, you can't marry my daughter." Why not? Because my daughter has this prophecy, Satyavati has this prophecy that her son will become the emperor, and you already have a son. And your son is Bhishma. So the first son becomes the next king. So sorry, emperor, but my daughter cannot marry you. And And he was very sad. He went back home and he became morose. Boo-hoo, I can't marry such a tea. So when Deva Vrata detected his father was really morose, he asked the ministers, what's going on with Dad? And he was told by a fisherman that he can't marry the girl's his daughter. So this is the painting showing he went to the fisherman. There's Satyavati in the background. And he then took a vow. I'll never accept a wife. No, he said, I take the vow I won't become king. So that's not good. Why not? If you get married and you have a son, then your son will become the king. And so my daughter's son will become the king. And so, no. Okay, I won't become two vows. I won't become king and I'll never marry. And so the fisherman said, okay, my daughter can marry your husband, your father. So they got married, Satyavati and Santanu. So Bhishma was the first son of who? Ganga. Bhismadev was the eighth son, so he was the eldest son of Santanu. But now he has a second wife. The first son has agreed to not become the king. So that means Satyavati's sons will become the king, which is what the father wanted. And when he came back and told his father, guess what, Dad? I took a vow I won't become the king and I won't get married. His father gave a benediction, my dear son, you are so stern in keeping your promise. I give you this benediction that you will never die unless you desire. Now, what human being could give a benediction like that? But he did. And that's what happened. Now, those of us that know a little bit from Mahabharata, we'll remember together, that Bhishmadev was one of the Vasus. Deva Vrata, before he was the son of Santanu, he was one of 8 Vasus. Who are the Vasus? This is from Bhagavad Gita. Some of you like Bhagavad Gita, I know. The chapter 10, the opulences of the Absolute. From Narayana, Indra is born. From Narayana, 8 Vasus are born. From Narayana, 11 Rudras are born. And from Narayana, the 12 Adityas are born. This Narayana is an expansion of Krishna. That's Prabhupada's purport. And now we're going to go over to Canto 6, Chapter 6. The sons of Vasu were known as the 8 Vasus. That makes sense. Just hear their name from me. Drona, Prana, Dhruva, Arka, Agni, Dosha, Vastu, and Vibhatsu, Vibhavasu. That's the list in 6th canto. 7th canto, the names are a little different. This is Prabhupada's purport. Madhvacharya says there are 3 kinds of demigods. 3 kinds of demigods. The Adityas, sons of Aditi, Vasus, and the Rudras, beneath whom are the other demigods, like the Maruts and Sadhyas. In case you like details, this is some detail. 3 categories of demigods. Aditya, sons of Aditi. And then Vasu, so we're going to hear more about the Vasus. Who are they? Because that's the heading at the top. Who are the Vasus? And Then the Rudras, mentioned from the Bhagavad Gita purport as well. Here they are, by name, the 8 Vasus. Agni, the fire god. Prithvi, the goddess of earth. So one of them is a lady. Vayu, wind god. Antariksha, god of space. Aditya, sun god. Chandrama, moon god. That's 6. Nakshatra, or the god of the nakshatras or asterisms. What are nakshatras or asterisms? Constellations of stars that by lunar calendars, the moon each 28 days moves through certain number of nakshatras or asterisms or constellations of stars. And so one may be born under such constellation or such constellation or such constellation. That's if you want to know astrology a little bit. Nakshatras or constellations or asterisms, all mean the same thing. And then number 8, that's our Bhishma, who became Devavrata. Dyo, the god of luminous sky. The god of luminous sky. Bhishma was formerly Dyo, the leader of the Vasus. So amongst the 8 brothers, or 8 Vasus, Dyo was the leader. He was the elder and the leader. Because from the sky, the subtle element sky, comes so many things, right? That's Sankhya, right? Some of you are nodding, some of you don't know. Sankhya teaches that from the manifestation starts from subtle, next gross, next more gross, next more gross. The whole cosmic manifestation unfolds from the subtle. So the Vasus, they're not just elements, these are personalities that rule the luminous sky or rule the this or the that. And they're powerful. They're warrior-like. That's what one of the things the Vasus are known for. They're great fighters. So number 8 was named Dyo. Here's what happened. Something unfortunate happened. Vashishta Muni. Don't mess with Vashishta, please. He lived in one of the forests of Mount Meru. He was adept in the practice of austerity and meditation. With the help of Kamadhenu cow, he performed sacrifices to please the Supreme Being. He was a Vaishnava, got nice Vaishnava tilak. And he's got some animals, rabbits and chipmunks and other entities, and he's reciting the Vedas. That's what's on the little table in front of him. And he performed sacrifices. And he did so with the assistance of his celestial cow or wish-fulfilling cow. Kama means desire. Kamadhenu, the cow that fulfills desires. So he would wish something and the cow would provide it so he could do his yogas. Anything. Anything. Pretty amazing cow. Holy cow. One day, the 8 Vasus, headed by Prithvi, that's the female, had the earth, came to that forest. And who was in the forest? You have a good memory. Who was in the forest? Vashishta, right? Okay, Vashishta is in the forest. Roaming about with their wives, the Vasus entered the hermitage of Vashishta Muni. They not just were in the forest, but they met him. They went into his hermitage. They spotted the celestial cow named Nandini. One of the Vasus, whose name was Joe, then informed his wife. This cow belonged to the eminent sage Vashishta, and it is said that the mortal who drinks the milk of this cow remains unchanged for 10,000 years. Well, his wife was a little less controlled than her husband. The wife turned to her husband and said, I have a very dear friend named Jitavati, who is the daughter of the sage Nara. I wish to take this cow and calf as a present for her. Well, her husband Joe said, sorry, we don't take the property of Brahmanas. What to speak of this one? But she kept insisting and kept insisting and kept insisting, and nagging, they say. So with his brothers, they abducted the Kamadhenu and her calf. Big mistake. Big mistake. So there they are, heading away from the Vishishta Muni's ashram with the stolen Kamadhenu. Because Vishishta, by mystic powers, he came to know the cow and the calf had been taken away. He cursed them to be born on earth as ordinary mortals. And that's what happened. 8 of them. Now, how many sons were there? The sons of Santanu and Ganga Devi? 8. When the Vasas heard the Vishishta's curse, they came to his hermitage to pacify him. So then he got a little pacified and he said, the great Brahmana Vishishta compassionately said, this curse is the suitable punishment to rectify your enjoying mentality. You will be freed from it shortly after your earthly birth. However, this one over here, Joe, who actually stole my cow, shall have to domicile on earth for a long period of time. Joe, though living on earth, shall not marry and have children. He will, however, be a man of kingly virtue and will know the essence of the Holy Scriptures. He will be an obedient servitor to his father, Santanu, but will have to live without female companionship. So, Vishishta, it was pacified at least to some degree. Let's go back again. The Vasas then begged a benediction from Ganga to cast them from Ganga. They begged a benediction from Ganga to cast them into the waters of the Ganges immediately upon taking birth. But Joe resided on earth to fulfill the curse of Vishishta Muni. So now let's go back a little bit. There on the left we see Santanu, and over on the right we see, who's that? Who rides an elephant? Starts with an I. Hello? What's his name? I'm just speaking to you. Huh? Indra. Rides a big white elephant? Yeah, that's Indra. In his previous life, Santanu was a king. Guess this is Mahabharata, gets complicated, sorry. He, in his previous life, Santanu was a king in the lineage of Ikshvaku. Who's Ikshvaku? He's the son of Manu, Vivasvata Manu. And Manu was the son of Vivaswan. Vivaswan. So Vivaswan, Vivasvata Manu, Ikshvaku. And Vivasvata Manu sent Ikshvaku to the earthly realm to rule on earth. So the sun dynasty, Vivaswan, the sun god, had a son named Manu. Manu had a son named Ikshvaku. Ikshvaku was sent to the earthly realm to establish a kingdom, so the solar dynasty. So Santanu in his previous life was in the solar dynasty, the son of Ikshvaku. And he had a nice name, Mahabhisha, or Mahabhisha, desiring residence in heaven. He was now on earth, a king on earth. He desired residence in heaven. He performed great sacrifices to satisfy Indra, and as a result ascended to Indra's abode. At the end of his life, it worked. He went to heaven. However, when he was in the assembly with Indra, he saw the divinely beautiful Ganga. Woo, woo, woo. As he looked at her, a gust of wind suddenly blew away her garments. All the celestials looked away, but Mahavishnu continued to gaze at her, previously captivated by her beauty. Brahma saw all this. For this rudeness, Brahma cursed him. You will again be born on earth, but you'll return here after one life. Santanu had attained the planet of Indra, but he offended Lord Brahma at a big festival at Brahmaloka. And so he was cursed to take birth as Santanu. Given his choice as who would be his father on earth, King Pratipa was selected by Mahavishnu. So Pratipa was the father of Santanu. Here, in the earthly realm, Ganga became attracted to King Pratipa. That's the father of Santanu. Complicated, right? Pratipa was the father of Santanu. But Santanu wasn't born until Pratipa got attracted to Ganga, or Ganga became attracted to Pratipa. King Pratipa blessed her to become his not yet born son's wife, who became the son. Santanu became the son. Pratipa got together with Ganga. In course of time, Santanu was born to King Pratipa. So all is well until something else happened. When turning over his kingdom to his son, who was Santanu, Pratipa gave explicit instruction to Santanu regarding a celestial maiden who would become his queen. Who was that celestial maiden? Meanwhile, Ganga Devi had made a promise to the 8 Vasus who were cursed by Vasishta, combined with Vasishta's request to Ganga. Phew. But the puzzle pieces fit together. So Ganga came to earth, requested by the Vasus, so that they could take birth as her sons. And after they were born, they would be tossed into Ganga. Anybody lost? You're okay. Great. So something happened. What happened? Santanu was one day walking along the side of the river Ganga, and he saw Ganga Devi. Woo, woo, woo. Ganga Devi received a promise from Santanu. Will you marry me? Yes, on the condition that you must not interfere with, this is a good promise, right? You want to get married? You must not interfere with my acts, whether they are agreeable or not. You must never address me in harsh words. And of course. But little did he know, each of the sons that were born, she tossed him in the Ganga. But he's going to say nothing. All 8 were born of Ganga Devi and Santanu. And one by one by one. But when number 8 came along, he couldn't take it. And so he spoke up and said, don't. She said, I'm leaving. And she said, poof, she just disappeared with son number 8. She named him. He didn't even see his son till much later. And Ganga Devi, took Deva Vrata to the celestial realm, because that's where she's from. And she had Brihaspati, the priest of the demigods, train Deva Vrata and Vashishta. They taught him all branches of knowledge, including how to fight. But the fighting was done by Parshuram. He was Devavrata's military instructor. Ah, because it came up later that he had a guru, Bhishmadev, Devavrata had a guru, and the guru, the Dhanurved, or the military guru, was none other than Parshuram. 32 years later, Santanu met Devavrata. Here's how he met Devavrata. He was walking along Ganga, and he saw that the waters of the Ganga had stopped. And he'd never seen that before. Ganga doesn't stop. So he followed upstream, 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 and he found out why. That some 32-year-old young fellow had fired so many arrows in a mystical way that the Ganga stopped flowing. And it's when he saw this young man standing so shortly thereafter, standing right next to this young man, was Ganga Devi, the mother. And Ganga Devi said, Haribol, I'd like you to meet your son, who you haven't seen in 32 years. I took him to the celestial region, and he's now all trained, and he's your son. So take good care of him. Haribol, see you later. And she disappeared. So she fulfilled her promise to Vashishta and the 8 Vasus, or the 7 Vasus. She tossed all 7 of them into the Ganga. And she had 8 sons with Santanu. And that's the painting on the right. There she is, showing her son, or Santanu and her son, to the father. Clear so far, right? Gets a little twisty again. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th canto, describes something about Satyavati. Who was Satyavati? Satyavati was actually the daughter of Vichari Uparichara Vasu, Uparichara Vasu, by the womb of a female fish named Matsyagarbha. What's all that about? Whew. Later, so something happened. There's always something in the Mahabharata. There's lots of intrigue. She was the daughter of the sage Upadichara Vasu. But the child, it's very complicated. Upadichara became very attracted to a female Apsara, and in attraction to the female Apsara, he discharged semen. The semen was swallowed by a fish. The fish grew a female child within the body of the fish. A fisherman caught the fish. When he opened up the fish, he saw a human, a female. He brought the fish and the female to Upachari Vasu. And Upachari Vasu gave the daughter that was in the fish to the fisherman, and accepted the fish because he wasn't a vegetarian after all. And so now Satyavati was raised by a fisherman, the one who caught the fish that had swallowed the semen, became from Uparichara Vasu. Complicated, but you get it. The gestation period was inside a fish. She was born with a bad fishy smell. Her body smelled fishy. But she was very beautiful, like a celestial maiden, like a Vasu's son, or daughter, excuse me. Uparichara Vasu would ride this crystal chariot in the sky at high places. That's how he got the name Upadi, high, Chara, moving around. King Upadichara and wife Girika, attracted to each other, male and female children born from a fish, male and female children born from a fish. The female child was named Matsya Gandha because she smelled like a fish. And but she was very, very beautiful. So she, the fisherman's daughter, Matsya Gandha, was given a service by the father to convey people across the Ganga. And his idea was, the day may come when you have a passenger that's a sage crossing the river, and the sage may give you some benediction. So that became a profession. She was as you see in the painting here. She was extraordinarily beautiful. There we see Parashara Muni, that's in the background. Parashara Muni hailed Matsyagandha, can you take me across the river? And she said, of course. And there's different descriptions, but Parashara Muni was really good at astrology. As they were crossing the boat, crossing Ganga, he did some astrological calculations, and he determined at this very moment, an incarnation of the personality of Godhead is going to appear. So he turned to Matsyagandha and said, would you be the mother? I can be the father of an incarnation of the personality of Godhead. And she said, we're not married. He said, it's okay. I can make you pregnant without having you lose your virginity. It's as if we never had union. And she said, well, look around, and there's all these other boatmen, and how's this going to work? And he said, no worries. I'll create a mystical island covered by fog, and no one will see. And she said, well, then I'll be walking around for 9 months pregnant. She said, don't worry. He had an answer to everything. Don't worry. The child was born practically instantly after being conceived. Okay. And so she concurred. Parashara Muni produced Vyasadeva in her womb. And then, being grateful to her, Parashara Muni gave her a benediction. Her next son would become the king. Not her next son, her own first son. Her son would become the king. Next son. First son, Vyas. Her next son will become the king. So she went back and said, hey, Dad, guess what? Guess what? Guess what happened today on the boat? And another thing that father accepted what she said was, this Matsya Gandha, the fragrance smelling like a fish, completely went away. And she smelled very fragrant. So he accepted what she said was true. The fisherman now believed that his daughter got the benediction from Parashara Muni that he thought might happen, and it happened. And her son is going to become the king. So Santanu, back to Santanu, he went and asked for the benediction of having his daughter marry the emperor. And he said, no. And well, why not? I'm the emperor. Well, my daughter's son is going to become the next king. And you're already the king, and you already have a son. Bhishma. No, not. Then he's still Devavrata. So then this is Bhishma taking the vow. There's the girl in the background. Now Matsyagandha, and she became known as Satyavati, and 2 children were produced by the combination of Satyavati and Santanu. Two sons, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. Chitrangada and Vichitravirya, here's the flow chart, the lineage. You see across the top on the left, there's Ganga and Santanu. First son, Bhismadev. Next, Santanu had a second wife, Satyavati. They had two sons, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. Chitrangada died early. Vichitravirya became the next king. He married two queens, Ambika and Ambalika. Ambika and Ambalika, two queens. And there's, on the upper right, Satyavati and Parashara produced Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva impregnated these queens of Vichitravirya because there's a policy. You know the policy? The policy is, in the absence of the husband, if he's deceased, then a brother of the husband may produce children in the womb of the sister, his wife. So Ambika and Ambalika were in lineage to have children, but there was no husband. So Satyavati, being concerned now about the lineage of kings, she approached Bhismadev and said, Bhismadev, will you produce children with these two queens, sons of, or wives of Vichitravirya? Because he's the elder brother. And he said, sorry, I've taken a vow. But I'll remind you, you have another son. His name is Vyas, right? And Vyas, when Vyasadeva was born, said, my dear mother, if for any circumstance I'm going to the forest and engage in austerities, if for some reason or other you need me, just call my name. And immediately I'll come. So she, Satyavati, called Vyas. And instantly he appeared. And she, Satyavati, the mother, gave her son, Vyasadeva, the instruction, please produce sons with these two queens, Ambika and Ambalika. And you know what happened? There were two sons, and then just for assurance sake, just in case something weird happened, she, Satyavati, requested Ambika to conceive a second son. She was too afraid. Vyas looked terrible. So she sent her maidservant. And the maidservant was very gentle and very, it was a very different kind of personality. And she produced as a son, Vidura. Got it? A little complicated, but you got it. A little complicated, but you got it. So, we know from Srimad-Bhagavatam, in the 6th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, there's a description of the 12 Mahajans. Who gave us that list of the 12 Mahajans? One of them at the end was Yamaraj. And he lists himself as one of the 12, but Bhismadev is one of the 12. Swayambhu, Narada, Shambhu, Kumara, Kapilo, Manu, Prahlada, Janaka, Bhishmo, Valir, Vyasaki, Vayam. These are the 12 Mahajans, great authorities. That's one of those 12 great authorities is Bhishma, the son of, who is he the son of? Ganga and Santanu. So he didn't become king, but he as the grandfather of those who became the king. And the one who became the king eventually, because he was the firstborn son, was Yudhisthira. So the celebrated pastime that's in Canto 1, Chapter 9, Bhishma, the chronology is very interesting. Because of time, I won't go into the chronology because it takes too long to do it all. But grandfather Bhishma was shot with arrows, as we see, on the 10th day of the battle. How long was the battle? 18 days. And when the 18 days was over, he was waiting and waiting and waiting for an auspicious time because he had this benediction from his father. He didn't have to leave his body, he didn't have to die unless he chose to die. But he chose to die at an auspicious time when Makara Sankranti, the sun, starts to move in the northerly direction. So he had to wait. He's lying on the battlefield for like 60 days. Look at this, riddled with arrows. And meanwhile, Yudhisthira went back, went to Hastinapur. The whole fanfare of his being reinstalled as the emperor, and many things happened. And then they, Yudhisthira and his brothers and Krishna, came to the scene where Bhismadev is still lying on the bed of arrows. Bhismadev knew well that Lord Krishna is the original Narayana. His worshipable deity was four-handed Narayana. Now, Bhismadev had a particular relationship with Krishna as a servant. There's 5 rasas. His is number 2, Dasya. He saw himself as a servant of Krishna. And as a servant of Krishna, he had a secondary rasa, chivalry rasa. What does that mean? He wanted to satisfy Krishna by giving a nice fight. So he took the position of being on the opposite side of Arjuna, knowing full well that Krishna would protect Arjuna. He would be defeated because Krishna would protect Arjuna. And he did it for the secondary chivalrous rasa as the servant, to give a big tussle to Krishna, who doesn't get tussles in Vaikuntha or Goloka. There's no fights. He gave him a nice fight so that Krishna would be pleased. That was the purpose. There's details and details, but that's the essence. He saw Krishna as four-armed Narayana. Krishna came, his pastimes, he's two-armed. When he came before grandfather Bhishma, 4 arms, because that's the love of grandfather Bhishma towards Krishna. He knew that the 4-armed Narayana was the plenary expansion of Krishna. Indirectly, he desired Krishna to manifest himself in his 4-armed feature of Narayana. As a great fighter, we're almost done, we have 2 slides left. As a great fighter in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he was relishing the relation of Krishna in chivalrous humor. There's the scene, grandfather Bhishma pulling arrows, and he took a vow that by the end of today, Krishna has made me break my vow. I'll make Krishna break his vow. So there, either that or I'll kill Arjuna. But he knew he can't kill Arjuna because Krishna would protect him. The fighting was an exchange of transcendental pleasure between the Lord and Bhismadev. The Lord was perfectly happy with the wounds caused by the sharpened arrows of Bhismadev. It said it's just like what our acharyas describe it, like a lover biting the beloved. And the beloved feels, the bites of my lover. He liked, Krishna liked. His throwing of sharp arrows at the transcendental body of the Lord is as good as the worship of another devotee who throws soft roses upon him. And he wanted very much when he left this body that Krishna would be there. So Krishna stood there, with his eyes. He spoke many, 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 many things. And then it was time, the sun was moving. He withdrew his senses, fixed his eyes upon the personality of Godhead Krishna, and left his body at will. And guess where he went? Went to Krishna. Went to Krishna. So that's a little bit of one of the personalities found in Canto 1, Chapter 9, about personalities in Canto 1 Srimad Bhagavatam that are revealed in Srimad Bhagavatam, especially in Canto 1, but Mahabharata and other places as well. So let's see if there's some comments or discussion. I hope you're not all too much confused. Could you follow everything? Yeah? You're familiar with this a little bit? Okay, that's why. How about you? 10%? But you know what happens if you hear it and then you hear it and you hear it, then you start to see, oh, this puzzle piece fits together with that puzzle piece, fits together with that puzzle piece. So just go on hearing, even if you can't see how it all fits together, just go on hearing. And then it's purifying, first of all, because it's about Krishna. And then how the storyline flows, it's very intriguing, quite mystical, in fact, and very attractive. Let's see if there's some comments or questions. Anyone? Anything? Yes.
You said he went back to Godhead. So now, did he go back to directly to Krishna then? What happened?
That's a good question. And there's two opinions. Because the statement by Vashishta was, Joe will return back to the realm of the Vasus. Right? So there are two opinions. And one opinion is he became a Krishna conscious Vasu. He didn't make the same mistake again. And another is Narayana is his worshipable deity, so he went to Narayana, four-armed Narayana, or the Lord of Vaikuntha realm. So there's two opinions. Anything else? Yes.
What was the work of Krishna that Krishna brought?
What was the what? Okay. On day 9, on day 8, the night of day 8, Duryodhana, who had requested Bhishma to be his commander-in-chief, questioned, why did Bhishma agree to be the commander-in-chief of Duryodhana? He's bad. He knew it, and he chastised him severely many times. He's fully cognizant, Bhishma. He's one of the 12 Mahajans. He knows what a bad guy Duryodhana is. So why did he agree? And there's multiple reasons. But the reason that's superlative above all is rasa. The rasa reason is he, the servant of Krishna, wanted to give Krishna a tussle. He wanted to enter into and give the satisfaction to Krishna of chivalrous rasa. So that's why he chose. And there's many other subordinate reasons, but that's what he chose. On the 8th day, evening, many things happened in the first 8 days. Duryodhana came to Grandfather Bhishma and said, you're not trying. You could finish these people like that, but you're not making that kind of effort. Why? Because you have affinity for the Pandavas, I know. but you're a commander-in-chief and we're relying upon you, and you accepted that responsibility. So Bhishma said, this is the vow that Krishna made him break. Bhishma said, here's 5 arrows. Come to see me tomorrow morning like you see me every morning. You come and touch my feet and bring these 5 arrows. And with these 5 arrows, during the next day, day number 9, I'll kill the Pandavas with these 5 arrows. So Duryodhana went back happy. Krishna being omniscient, you know the story. Krishna being omniscient, he knew what the plan was, the 5 arrows. So Krishna said to Arjuna, do you remember when you saved Duryodhana's life? This and that thing happened without the details. And he was so indebted to you that he gave you a promise. Anything you want, you ask it and it's yours. And you said, no, I don't need anything now, maybe later. Remember that, Arjuna? Now, go ask him. And just ask him for those 5 arrows, he'll know what you're talking about. So he went and asked him for the 5 arrows, and Duryodhana gave him the 5 arrows. And the next morning, morning number 9, Bhishma had taken a vow, I'm going to kill the Pandavas with these 5 arrows. And Krishna's trick, not Arjuna, Krishna's trick, he made me break a vow. I've never broken my vow. I'm going to make Krishna break his vow. Or I'll kill Arjuna. But he knows he can't kill Arjuna because Krishna will protect him. And that's what happened. It was day 9. And by the end of the day, that's when he got riddled with all those arrows. There was a lot of intrigue on day 9, boy. That was very interesting. Boys often like the battle scenes. I found that out. Some boys, at least. Do you like battle scenes? Day 9, Mahabharata. Check it out. Have your mother or father show you where it is and read the battle scenes. Really lovely. Anything else? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki. Gaur Premanandi Gaur. If some of you don't go away yet, some of you may know, but before I came here to Minneapolis, I was in a warmer place called Virginia. Not the same as Florida, but it's still warmer than here. And the devotees in Virginia, they know that I like to give out Mahaprasadam at the end of class. So they gave me half a suitcase full of Mahaprasadam. So I'm going to walk around and give out some Mahaprasadam. Just stick out your right hand, please.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.